On October 1st, 2017, Stephen Paddock carried 24 guns into the Mandalay Bay Hotel in South Las Vegas. That night at 10:08 p.m., he opened fire from above on thousands of concertgoers attending the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival below. At first, listeners thought it was just rapid drumming, until screams rang out and people realized someone was shooting from high above. Within 10 minutes, Paddock fired 12 bursts, discharging hundreds of bullets. When police broke down his hotel room door about an hour later, he had already taken his own life. The attack killed 58 people and wounded more than 500 others, making it the deadliest mass shooting in American history. Soon after, the ATF classified the bump stocks Paddock used as a type of machine gun, requiring owners to surrender or destroy them. Yet 7 years later, on June 14, 2024, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned that ban in bump stocks, outlawed for 7 years, suddenly became legal again. So what exactly is this controversy about? The story begins in the 1930s. Alongside the unemployment of the Great Depression, Prohibition had spawned crime organizations like Al Capone's mob and outlaws like Bonnie and Clyde. To curb criminal access to firearms and tighten control over fully automatic weapons, the U.S. government passed the National Firearms Act in 1934, bringing highly lethal, frequently criminal-used firearms under regulation and taxation, including machine guns like the Thompson submachine gun and the bar. The NFA defined a machine gun as any weapon that fires, or is designed to fire, automatically more than one round per single function of the trigger, without manual reloading. This standard is still used today, codified in 26 U.S.C. 5845. The most contested phrase is, any weapon which shoots automatically more than one shot without manual reloading by a single function of the trigger. This single sentence spawned countless borderline accessories over the years and ultimately became the basis for the Supreme Court's bump stock ruling. Keep it in mind, we'll return to it. Under 18 U.S.C. 921, a semi-automatic rifle uses part of the firing energy to eject and chamber the next round, but requires a separate trigger pull for each shot. Pull, fire, release, reset, ready again. One trigger motion equals one shot fired, satisfying the single-function, single-round definition. The Springfield M1A, the SKS, and most civilian AR-15s fall into this category. A fully automatic rifle, by contrast, fires continuously once the trigger is pulled, stopping only when released one trigger motion, multiple rounds fired. Whether it's a 2-round or 3-round burst, this qualifies as a machine gun. The without manual reloading clause exists specifically to exclude pump-action shotguns like the Ithaca M37 or Model 1897, which can fire multiple rounds per trigger pull by rapidly racking the forend. This seemed to close every loophole, but how could one law stop determined gun owners from achieving automatic-style fire on their own? Enter bump firing. The shooter rests a finger in front of the trigger, holds the rifle near the waist, and pushes forward with the right pressure to create rapid fire effects similar to full auto. But this technique required holding the rifle at waist level and was unreliable and inaccurate, really just a novelty trick at gun ranges. The turning point came in 2002 when designer Bill Akins, watching a World War II documentary, noticed the violent recoil of naval anti-aircraft guns and wondered if that recoil could be harnessed. He designed the Akins Accelerator, a spring-loaded shell enclosing the rifle's receiver. When fired, recoil wouldn't transfer to the shooter's shoulder as usual. Instead, the whole rifle would move backward, compressing an internal spring just enough to reset the trigger. Then, pushed forward again by the spring, the rifle would bring the trigger back into contact with the shooter's finger, firing again, repeating until the trigger was released. Footage from 17 years ago shows a Ruger 1022 fitted with an Akins Accelerator firing at rates approaching an MG42, cycling back and forth with an effect resembling a recoil-operated weapon. The ATF took notice, and in 2005 classified the Akins Accelerator as a machine gun, reasoning that a single trigger pull initiated an automatic firing cycle until the finger released, the weapon jammed, or ammo ran out. It all came down to that spring. Owners were bluntly instructed to remove the spring and mail it to their local ATF office with their name and address. Later, manufacturers removed the spring entirely, requiring the shooter to actively push forward instead, and the modern bump stock was born. It's essentially a plastic shell fitted over the stock and grip, with a small ledge at the front. The rifle can slide slightly forward and backward within it. To fire, the shooter rests a finger against the ledge, grips the forend with the left hand, and applies gentle forward pressure. Recoil pushes the rifle backward, resetting the trigger. Continued forward pressure from the left hand then pushes the rifle forward again, causing the trigger to recontact the finger and fire again. Because the finger stays fixed against the ledge, contact with the trigger only happens once it has fully reset, preventing accidental single shots. The key point: a bump stock doesn't let a shooter fire multiple rounds per single trigger pull. It simply shortens the interval between pulls dramatically. The trigger must still reset before each shot. Under the legal definition of a machine gun, this doesn't qualify. It's just a conventional rifle firing at very short intervals. In fact, just 6 months before the Las Vegas shooting, the ATF itself had stated bump stocks would not automatically fire more than 2 rounds per trigger pull, since the shooter must continuously push forward, satisfying the manual reloading requirement that the Akins Accelerator lacked. In short, bump stocks never actually met the legal definition of a machine gun. So how did the ATF make them illegal, and how did the Supreme Court reverse that in 2024? After the Las Vegas tragedy, a wave of condemnation swept from Congress to the public. The ATF, which had long eyed these borderline accessories, quickly issued a final rule reinterpreting the NFA's machine gun definition. As an enforcement agency, the ATF cannot change Congress's statutory definition, only interpret it. In its final rule, the ATF redefined single function of the trigger as a single pull, and automatically as firing multiple rounds via a self-regulating mechanism, classifying the bump stock itself as exactly such a mechanism, spring or no spring. Gun owners, unsurprisingly, pushed back immediately. In March 2022, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals heard a case brought by Damian Gades and the Firearms Policy Coalition against the ATF over whether bump stocks qualified as machine guns. The core question was whether the ATF had legal authority to redefine machine gun to include them. The court concluded the ATF's interpretation wasn't the only reasonable one, but was the best available, and upheld the rule. In essence, we can't think of anything better, but we won't object either. The real turning point came from Michael Cargill, a gun store owner in Austin, Texas. After surrendering 2 bump stocks under the ban, he sued the ATF under the Administrative Procedure Act, arguing it lacked authority to issue the rule since bump stocks didn't meet the NFA's definition. The Fifth Circuit initially upheld the ban, but after an en-banc rehearing, reversed course. The majority agreed the law was ambiguous on the matter. The case reached the Supreme Court, where things took an unexpected turn. 6 of 9 justices ruled the ATF lacked statutory authority. Their reasoning: a shooter must release the trigger and let it reset between shots. That's the fundamental line between semi-auto and full auto. Each shot comes from a separate, independent trigger function, and a bump stock doesn't change that internal mechanism. Moreover, even with a bump stock, a single trigger pull doesn't automatically complete the follow-up shots. A shooter pulling too gently gets only 1 round, and must keep pushing the forend forward to sustain the rate of fire. That forward push, the court reasoned, isn't itself a function of the trigger, if the ATF's logic were applied consistently. Even oddities like the Ithaca 37 pump shotgun would qualify as machine guns, since racking its forend is legally indistinguishable from pushing a bump stock forward. The bump stock case exposed real limits in Section 5845. It only covers traditional machine guns, not other high rate of fire weapons, a gap, not an invalid law. Even though the ATF leaned heavily on rate of fire, the statute doesn't define machine gun based on speed or trigger technique. In effect, the court fought interpretation with interpretation. Justice Alito put it plainly: Congress, in writing this statute, likely saw no meaningful difference between a machine gun and a bump stock equipped rifle, but the text is clear, and the court must follow it. Las Vegas proved such rifles can be just as lethal as machine guns, and proved the law needs updating, but that doesn't change what the text currently says. The matter now rests with Congress. Like California's assault weapons ban and the ATF's pistol brace rule, the bump stock saga, after 7 years of legal battles, has reached at least a temporary conclusion. It's a clear reminder of just how vast and strange the gaps in America's gun laws really are, more than enough material for 512 more episodes. Thanks for watching. This video carries nearly the heaviest research load of anything I've made between digging through documents and consulting experts. If you'd like more videos like this, please like and subscribe the channel. See you next time. Bye-bye.